In a nation once united, political polarization and divisiveness have taken center stage. The ideological battlegrounds stretch far and wide, infiltrating our homes, workplaces, and halls of government. Today we delve into this deepening chasm of discord, aiming to understand the roots of our nation's division. Here in the U.S., we are a collection of people with a tapestry of diverse perspectives and beliefs, and as of late have found that tapestry entangled in a web of animosity and mistrust. Red and blue states paint an ever-widening divide that threatens the very fabric of our democracy. But beyond heated debates and partisan rhetoric lies a struggle to find common ground, to bridge that gap that separates us and rediscover the shared values that define our nation. The forces driving this political polarization are multifaceted. Economic equality, social unrest, and a relentless flood of information from media outlets and social networks all contribute to the disintegration of civil discourse. We are now witnesses to a clash of ideologies where compromise often feels like a distant dream. But what led us to this point? And more importantly, is there a way back? The ramifications of this division stretch far and wide. Families and friendships are strained or even cut under the weight of opposing political beliefs. Communities fracture alongside ideological fault lines, and while each side steadfastly defends their version of the truth. The consequences of this toxic polarization are dire, as we find ourselves unable to tackle other urgent issues that demand our collective attention. At America's Frontline, we believe the path towards reconciliation begins with understanding. By seeking to comprehend the perspectives of those whom we disagree, we open the door to constructive dialogue. You can be a part of this discussion as well. Just drop a line in the comments or email us at americasfrontlinepodcast@gmail.com. This journey will not be without obstacles. The echo chambers of social media algorithms reinforce our existing biases, shielding us from diverse opinions and further entrenching our divisions. The onus is on us as citizens to actively engage in civil discourse and challenge our own preconceptions. We must resist the allure of simplistic narratives and recognize the complexities that lie beneath the surface. But how do we navigate the treacherous waters of political polarization while preserving our democratic ideals? How do we ensure that robust debates don't devolve into personal attacks? And how do we reclaim the spirit of compromise that once defined our nation? Some say we must hold our leaders accountable, demand transparency, and reject the allure of divisive attacks. We must cultivate a culture that values critical thinking, respect, and the pursuit of common goals. The road to a more united America is fraught with challenges, but our future depends on our ability to rise above them and find common cause in the values that unite us. Join us today as we navigate the complexities of political polarization on America's Frontline. Today we have Kenneth Hall, visionary CEO of the Hollis Group. The Hollis Group is a pioneering holding company revolutionizing ballistic armor materials for law enforcement and the military. With expertise in supply chain management, manufacturing, and navigating the intricate world of politics, Ken is a seasoned expert in overcoming political red tape to secure contracts for his life-saving products. His dedication extends beyond business as he actively advocates for women's rights, fighting to ensure that women have access to form-fitting body armor, a matter of life and death. Ken brings firsthand experience of the impact of political polarization on real people's lives. Those are the broad strokes. Ken, thanks for agreeing to be a part of this. I know by trying to schedule this how busy you are as a CEO. I'm glad that you took the time and we're very appreciative of it.
Well, thank you for having me. This is an important subject and it's obviously of huge importance right now in our political environment. The discourse that is going on seems to be talking past each other. You have two philosophies, basically, as I see it. You have the central hive philosophy that is being reinforced in all of our colleges and all of our settings. And then you have the way that was, prior to the last decade or so, where you had individual schools teaching, local values and run by the local PTA and school boards. Those schools tended to reflect the personality of that neighborhood and not so much the personality of Washington, D.C. So I think what we're ending up with is this basic conflict between basically anarchy and totalitarianism. And we fluctuate in between those two in our society right now without a true understanding of the founding and why we're here.
That's a pretty bold statement, Ken. Very well explained. Let's talk more about that, but before we dive into it, why don't you tell us a little more about the Hollis Group?
The Hollis Group was started to address a couple of problems. We believe that in order to address the current cycle of shooting and mass shootings and everything else, that we needed a product that was designed for that specific threat. In doing so, we came to realize that our patrol officers are the first line, and our infantry is the first line. And that's where we maybe lack some technology. We're putting a lot of focus on new gadgets and new research and DARPA and everything else. But in truth, when everything boils down to where the boots hit the ground. And shooting in a school environment or shooting in a mall, the patrol officer is the first one to get there. And if he has to wait for equipment, if he has to wait for backup, if he has to wait for anything, that time elapsed basically results in carnage. So we wanted to reduce that time. So our products are focused on, for law enforcement at least, on reducing that time and protecting the officer, giving him the courage to trust in his equipment and move to the threat as quickly as possible and confront the threat.
But that only works if he has something with him, right? So if he has this ballistic armor with him, whether it be a vest or the shield, he still has to have it. So how do you get that product into every officer's hand, or do you place it at a venue, and what kind of legislation is needed to make that happen?
Basically, we're addressing two segments of America. One is the supply chain issue, because that's as relevant as anything. The majority of our critical materials and minerals is supplied by China. The United States has neglected to follow its own rules, actually, for the military, and to source through domestic sources from start to finish. We've identified some very critical materials that put the United States in a vulnerable position, and we are moving quickly to address that. So we are taking on manufacturing from its actual source, in other words, whatever the original material is, or the mine, or the crop, or whatever it might be, and we're addressing developing that supply chain from that point all the way through to our product. In so doing, we're also trying to increase our manufacturing capabilities enough to supply our competitors, believe it or not, because our product, we may not be able to supply enough at one time, or at least at any given point, to meet the nation's needs to defend ourselves. So by assisting and turning our competitors into clients, I think we're doing the nation a service. We're not thinking of ourselves, we're thinking of the nation. So when you deal with that supply chain after that, now you have to address the two threats. One we know is body armor. Now body armor comes in various levels of protection and various forms of flexibility. So soft body armor typically is handgun rated. And our police officers today typically wear handgun rated body armor. But more and more, the threat they're facing is a rifle threat. It's an AR, it's an AK, it's something along those lines. And that gives pause. So in the past, the training that the officers receive has been, move to the threat, wait for backup, and then move ahead. Or if they go to a domestic dispute, which is becoming one of the most violent possible events that occur, they're going there with simply, concealed body armor, which is handgun rated, but they're being met by shotguns and rifles. We've had a lot of ambushes recently. So again, we're trying to make an impact in those areas, in the body armor market and in the handheld shield market, because we think it's been underutilized. We're pushing to have a handheld shield, rifle rated, lightweight, with offensive capability in every officer's hands in the United States and Canada.
I think that's great. So you're you ran into supply chain issues and you just decided we're going to take this raw mineral and dig it out of the ground here. And is that going to be in the U.S. or in North America? The mining of this raw material?
One of our most critical materials is a material that is very important to the ballistic industry. It's also very important to nuclear industry and anything that comes in between. It's in virtually every weapon system the United States makes. And the solo source for the United States is China. Now, I don't want to say 100% because India makes a little bit and several other nations have made very small portions. But the largest mine in the world for this material is owned jointly by China and Turkey. And that's where almost everything comes from. And they can do it so cheap that over time, the U.S. companies that made that product, it's cheaper to buy it from them. So we'll just buy it from them. And nobody has looked at it probably in 20 years. So fortunately or unfortunately, I come from the old school. So I start tracing everything back. And I found out that there is no domestic supply. Now, the one mine in the U.S. that deals with what we're dealing with has been around for over 100 years, and it's probably got about 10 years of life left. It's controlled by China. We did locate a new source in the United States that has a 50-year projected lifespan. We do not own that source, but we have allied with that source to supply the United States. We have also discovered 2 other probable mining sources, and we have partnered with companies in Canada to develop those sources. So we are working everywhere that we are legally qualified as the domestic source to develop this new supply chain to make sure that if we have to go on a war footing, we have enough of this product to do the job. Currently, if China shut us off, we have 8 months of supply in the United States. And I've had that confirmed by the highest levels of the Pentagon.